Councilmember Gian. Here. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Here.
Councilmember Lemons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. Are there any public comments?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor, but before we go on to this, we're going to go into some City Council public comment updates from the previous meeting. We had 4 residents that required some follow-up by staff. The first 2 were related, Mr. Donato Mota and Ms. Emily Blessing, were concerned about parking issues related to the La Paz Convalescent Hospital, and as well as loud parties that were coming from a property on Lakewood Boulevard. Staff is scheduled to meet with the new administrator from La Paz, and in regards to the Lakewood Boulevard property, staff and our deputy district attorney, whom you'll hear from tonight, they met with the owner of the Lakewood Boulevard property and notified them about the unpermitted activity that must cease immediately. We contacted both Mr. Mota and Ms. Blessing to inform them about our visits and our meetings that are coming up. The next 2 speakers are related, Ms. Nita Juaz and Ms. Ariana Garcia, and they were complaining about parking issues related to La Paz. And once again, we're scheduled to meet with the administrator at La Paz, and we contacted both residents to let them know about what we've done. So, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I'll take public comments now.
Yes, ma'am. We have 2 cards tonight. Our first one is from Ms. Holly Enriquez, and she would like to address the council regarding domestic violence. Ms. Enriquez?
Good afternoon, council members. Next month is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. In these next 3 minutes, 72 people will be a victim of violence at the hands of an intimate partner. That is 24 victims every minute, 12 million in a year. And yet only once a year in October, this rampant problem of domestic violence is in the spotlight. Survivors of abuse are recognized and called to speak out, and resources and hotline numbers are posted nationwide. However, domestic violence happens every day of the year. Domestic violence is prevalent in every community and affects all people, regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, and nationality. Domestic violence and intimate partner violence is considered a public health problem by the Center for Disease Control. The physical violence is accompanied by emotional abuse and controlling behavior, a pattern of dominance and control. Those living in situations of domestic violence sustain severe injuries, psychological trauma, or death. 20,000 calls are placed daily to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner. 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence. 1 in 10 women are raped by an intimate partner, and 1 in 3 females are murdered at the hands of an intimate partner. We, as a community and as a city, do not need to wait for this month, October, to come around and provide resources and support for many people being beaten, abused, stalked, or raped any day of the year. We all need to take a stand and do our part in raising awareness about domestic violence. I want to request a call to action by the City of Paramount to post permanent helpline numbers in the restroom stalls of community centers, City Hall, parks, and libraries. What else can the city do? There can be educational resources about what domestic violence is and what the warning signs are. The city can provide information about local nonprofit services and agencies, as well as the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The city can partner with local nonprofits such as Sukasa that provides such services as direct service to survivors, outreach, resources, and education. We as a city and community should take a zero-tolerance policy for domestic violence and support survivors in their journey to a safe and nonviolent life. Again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233, and in Spanish, 1-800-787-3224. There are many resources online for cities and other community members to provide help for survivors or people who you may think may be in need of help. And again, encourage maybe the city to reach out to the City of Norwalk, who has partnered with Sukasa, which provides resources for a lot of Spanish-speaking families. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I have a,
done a lot of work with Sukasa in the past, so I'm sure that they would be happy to partner with us. But I don't think I've seen any requests for them for funding in several years. Is
We
that
do.
correct?
No,
we still fund
we
them?
still fund them.
Yeah. And so we might reach out to the director. I know last time I talked to the newest director that was there was about 3 years ago after the lady who'd left, who'd been there for many more years. And maybe get some direction from them even,
Our
being
partners.
as they serve our residents about what would be the best way to move forward.
Absolutely, we can do that. Our next speaker, Madam Mayor, is Ms. Andrea Crow, our Paramount Librarian, and she'd like to address the council about the Make Me program.
Mayor Martinez, council members, and the City of Paramount. Make Mo is coming to Paramount Library. This Thursday at 4 o'clock, Make Mo, LA County Library's Makermobile, will fascinate children ages 8 to 12 with Connect sail cars. Participants will design, build, and test their own sail-powered cars. So please join us on Thursday, September 20th from 4 to 5 p.m. for some STEM-based fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Any others, John?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Okay. Item 1, request for installation of a disabled parking zone. Is my microphone on?
No,
No.
your light's not on.
Your
Diane.
light's not on there.
No,
The one
it's
behind.
behind the screen, behind the screen.
There you go.
Okay, may I have a staff
Oh, there we
report,
go, we
please?
can hear you now. Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, our latest request for a disabled parking zone comes to us from the northeast part of town on Howell Street. This is going to be in the neighborhood north of the high school, right off of Downey Avenue. The request was approved by the Public Works Commission earlier this month, and here's Sarah Ho, our Assistant Public Works Director, to tell us more about it. Sarah?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of council, we've received a request from Mrs. Sandra Decay for the installation of a disabled parking zone in front of her home at 8239 Howe Street, shown here on the map. She's requesting the zone because of limited accessible parking options in the neighborhood. Staff has inspected the site and found that neighborhood on-street parking is very limited. It should be noted that the residence does have some off-street parking via a driveway. However, the driveway is much too narrow and also too short to provide adequate ADA accessibility when parking the vehicle. Staff also verified there are no other disabled parking zones on the block. If approved, approximately 15 feet of the curb would be marked for disabled parking only and available for use to anyone with a valid placard. At their September meeting, the Public Works Commission recommended approval of this request, and a notice indicating that the council would hear the item this evening was sent to all the properties on Howe Street from Century to Anderson. That concludes my presentation, but I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Sarah?
I'll move the item.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer,
yes.
Councilmember Lemmons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hanson,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Item 2, update on strategies against gang environments program. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, you may, Madam Mayor. For just about 2 decades now, we've contracted with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for our own Deputy District Attorney. We contracted under the program that you mentioned, which is the Strategies Against Gang Environment. And the program was originally part of Paramount's overall aggressive approach to addressing criminal street gangs that peaked in Paramount in the 1990s. Over time, as our criminal street gang activity in our town has consistently and thankfully gone down, the focus of the Sage District Attorney has morphed more into other areas while still keeping an eye on any potential gang crime. So we try to update the City Council annually on what our Deputy DA has been working on over the past year. So tonight with us, we have our Deputy DA, Ms. Kelly Tatman, who will give you an overview of how she's been helping to make Paramount a safe community. Kelly?
Hi, good evening. It's been a while since I've been here, so it's nice to see you again. I prepared a little presentation about the year in review. It gives you a brief description of what I've been up to this past year, but touches on previous years as well. Just some background since I see a new face. I've been the Sage DA here in the city since 2011, so we're going on 7 years. I was the DA here. There's only been 4 DAs here in the city since 1999. So This is a great spot, and everyone who's worked here from our office really loves it because it's a step away from normal deputy district attorney duties being in court. You actually get to reach out into the community and help members of the community and shape sentences in court to protect the city. So just to get started, the year in review, I'm going to touch on 5 main areas that I've focused on throughout the year: the informal diversion program, abatements, text-to-tip program, stay-away orders, and give you a forecast of the new laws that have passed. First, the informal diversion program. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the district attorney's office, myself, and the probation department teamed up a few years ago when the juvenile courts closed. Probation was to take over the handling of all juvenile traffic citations. Instead of just letting probation take over our juvenile citations here in the city of Paramount, probation and I developed a program where all juvenile citations issued by Paramount deputies for infractions and some misdemeanors would come to me. I established a program where if people wanted to participate in this program, they would pay $25 to the city, and they would be referred out to one of 3 programs. They would go and complete one of the 3 programs at their choice, which one they wanted to do, come back, show me proof of completion, and the citation would be dismissed. Our participation rate that I have up there is misleading. It shows a participation rate of 50% in March, 32% in April, 22% in May, and 32% in June. It shows you how many total cites I received from the sheriff's deputies, and then the number of people who registered during that time period. What the number doesn't take into account is return letters. Basically, when I get the citation, I will send a letter addressed to the parent of the student at the address on the citation. A lot of times, I have the letter returned to me that that person is not at that address. I will notify the school that the letter was returned, and then the school takes it from there to investigate whether or not the student really lives here in the city. Also, some of the citations I receive, somebody's already on probation. So they won't necessarily participate in my program. Their ticket will be combined with their probation case. So when I say the number's misleading, that if I had 46 total sites and only 23 came and registered, that doesn't take into account the sites that weren't eligible to participate in my program. So what I'm basically trying to say is the program is pretty successful. Before people even get a letter, they know about the program, and they're already in the sheriff's department registering. So they know about it, and there's no limit. They can participate as many times as they want in the program. They just can't repeat the same program. The second thing that I focused on throughout the year was a certain abatement activity, and I'm sure council is very aware of what I call the labor of love for the last 8 months, which is the 14300 block of Garfield Avenue. This encompasses the area from Garfield Park all the way up to Cheap Liquor. We had quite a problem with transients sleeping on the grass area, other individuals who would purchase alcoholic beverages from Cheap Liquor, hanging out in front of various businesses. It just was an area that was getting a lot of calls for service. So what we did is we contacted, first and foremost, the dress shop. It's now vacant, but that dress shop attracted a lot of activity there because of the trees and because of the rocks that people could sit on. The dress shop agreed to make certain aesthetic improvements, and which included cutting back some of the trees, tearing out the grass and replacing it with rocks and gravel. So shopping carts couldn't be pushed up in the area, made it uncomfortable for people to sit there and hang out. Next, we addressed Mi Hot Salsa and Cheap Liquor. They share a parking lot, which is hidden from the main street, which also was attractive to a lot of people to go back there and drink, hang out. We had a homeless encampment in there at one point that got cleaned up and cleaned out with the help of those business owners. The owner of Mi Hot Salsa is very proactive. He's always calling, he's always asking what he can do. He even has his own painting crew of employees that go out there and paint the graffiti. Almost daily, in the past has gotten better. Cheap liquor, we had to get a little stronger with them. We contacted ABC. ABC went out and inspected the premises and cited the owner of the business for various offenses. Eventually, Cheap Liquor and Mihat's also got together and made the parking lot improvements that the deputies and I suggested, which was closing off a certain portion of the parking lot when the businesses were closed so that cars couldn't drive in there, and it made it less attractive and less accessible to people to get back there at night. California Construction was a business that was right next to Garfield Park. There was various activity occurring during the day and all throughout the night. The sheriff's deputies went in there and served a warrant at the location based upon other evidence of things that were going on that weren't part of what I was doing. And they recovered some narcotics and other activities such as sleeping quarters inside of there. And basically it was a hotbed of parolees who were residing there and coming in and out of there. We contacted the owner, and the owner evicted the people, the business. They are still there. They are fighting the eviction, but the property owner is on board with us and doing whatever he can to make sure that the activity ceases there. And he chose eviction, and he's following through. Garfield Park has had a lot of success in being cleaned up, thanks to our public safety director and her recommendations, also with various stay-away orders and people who are caught drinking in the park, gangsters who are loitering with other gang members in the park. We've got stay-away orders from the court so that those people are not welcome in the park anymore. So that has really helped in the success of cleaning up that area of Garfield Avenue. Other abatement activity that we're currently working on, the address on Walnut was it was owned by an elderly gentleman who passed away, who had a tenant who was his caretaker, who eventually allowed his friends who were into various narcotics activity to move in, and it became a high traffic area for narcotics, and we believe narcotic sales. Eventually the property went into foreclosure. It was bought by a third party, and those people were evicted. 16615 Orizaba is a recent abatement activity where we believe a chop shop was occurring. There was a stolen car found at the location. An individual was arrested. We called the property owner, spoke with him. Of course, as in many of these cases, the property owner has no idea what his tenants are doing. Once we advised him of the activity at the location, he took the action he thought was necessary to get rid of the problem, which was an eviction. And last but not least, you previously mentioned this before I came up, 15537 Lakewood Boulevard. There is a internet radio station operating there, and they're also holding extracurricular activities there, which are not permitted. We spoke with the property owner last week. He has taken the action of contacting the tenant and telling him he needs to obtain various permits if he wants to stay at the location. And I believe he has contacted the necessary individuals here in the city to start that process, and I'm sure I'll be back to talk about that at one point. Text-to-tip. I don't know if the council is familiar with text-to-tip, but it's been going on here in the city since 2014. I don't like to say this way, but really it was an idea that I stole from Orange County Sheriff's Department when I was dropping off my stepson a few years back at high school. I saw it, and I thought it was a great idea. I contacted the SRO, and he gave me all the materials necessary, and we started it here in Paramount. We initially started it just at the high school. Basically what it is we set up a Google Voice number where all the kids at the school could text the number, any information that would go to the school resource deputy, the dean, the security supervisor, and our public safety director. And basically, they could, from something as simple as John is selling chips illegally during lunchtime, all the way up to student John has a gun. The SROs, I think Orange County Sheriff's Department had 7 tips within a 6-month period. We probably get, if you can see on the next slide. During October 2017 through December 2017, there were 31 tips in 1 month. It's a very, very good tool for not only the school personnel and public safety personnel, but also for the students. Because everybody knows in this day and age, no one wants to be a snitch, no one wants to tell on anybody. This is a confidential tip line. When I say confidential, some people get that confused with anonymous. It's not anonymous because we have your number. If someone is caught doing criminal activity and a case is filed, we would reach out to that individual on a confidential basis and ask them if they wanted to go forward. Most of the time, we wouldn't need to use them in a criminal case, but we always have to preface the advertisement of this line as confidential, not anonymous. So as you can see, the tips throughout the year, 31 tips during that last quarter last year, the first quarter of this year, 34 tips, and the second quarter of this year, 21 tips. And I listed all the tips, what they were for. They ranged from bullying, suicide prevention, where someone would text in that their friend was talking about killing themselves, or they were demonstrating a behavior that was concerning to them. 5 drug possession, 2 drug sales, social media post of a student with a gun, heads up on campus fights that were going to occur after school, people smoking on campus. One of the ones in the first quarter of this year that was really upsetting and actually ended up with a huge investigation, and it really worked out for the benefit of the victim, was a girl texted that her friend had been beat up by her boyfriend. And her girlfriend, begged her not to tell anybody. Well, the friend had taken pictures, and she texted the texted tip line and said, "Hey, I'm concerned. I promised her I wouldn't say anything, but it's to the point where I really think that someone needs to step in." So that really was, it was addressed and it was resolved. And the victim eventually was very grateful that we reached out to help her. I won't go on and on, but a lot of the texts are for same thing: drugs, guns, bullying. And I think that was initially when we set out with the program, that's what we wanted. But when it grew into suicide tips and suicide prevention, we knew the program was a success. Case tracking, this is where I spend a majority of my time when I'm not monitoring the informal diversion program, is case tracking, going to court. And you may ask, do I handle the actual cases in court? No, I don't personally appear before the judge. However, I'm sitting with the DA in court. I'm giving the DA in court the information that they don't necessarily have in a police report. They may see that John Doe is charged with something, but I know all about John Doe. And I know John Doe has been causing trouble in the city for 7 years. And I know where John Doe likes to hang out, and I know who his friends are. And I know if he pleads to this charge, given the recent laws, he's not going to do any custody time. So the most important thing is to get probation conditions that not only help prevent him from committing the same type of offense in the future, but protecting public safety and protecting the citizens here in Paramount, like getting a stay-away order. But most importantly, search and seizure terms on cases are the single most important probation term to get, because it allows the deputies in the city to contact somebody who has search and seizure terms and to hit them up and to search them to make sure that, they're not carrying weapons, they don't have drugs. It's such an important tool. And when I get to, well, I think it might be the next slide. I'll come back to the School Attendance Review Board. It's an important tool because in the last few years, as I'm sure you are aware, we've had the passage of Prop 47, Prop 57. Most recently, Penal Code Section 1810. And I don't know if you're aware of it. I think I took some people by surprise when I mentioned it. But Governor Brown has signed into law that Penal Code Section 1810, which allows a defendant suffering from a mental disorder to be granted pretrial diversion and have the charges later dismissed for any crime. Any crime. I don't need to tell you what that means. Even someone charged with murder. If a judge finds the disorder played a significant role in the crime and if the defendant substantially complied with the mental health treatment during this diversion period. It's with these laws that have passed and no one's going to jail, most cases are getting diversion, meaning someone can walk into court, they can say, hey, I have a drug problem. Their case can be put on hold. They can walk into an AA place, or maybe not, because AA is anonymous, right? They can walk back into court with maybe a forged AA card. I'm not saying everybody does it, but it does happen. And they can get their case dismissed. And then the next day they go out and they get arrested again, and there's no limit. So when we have laws like 1810, where someone, like the Trader Joe's shooting a few months back, can go and shoot and kill somebody, and then later claim a mental disorder, get treatment, and that treatment max is 2 years. We need to be very proactive in the sentencing terms we can get in cases, and that's why I'm kind of bringing it back to the search and seizure terms and appearing in court and making sure that when someone gets convicted of a crime, we get probation conditions and they're monitored. Because with things that are coming down, I don't know where public safety is going. The most recent case that was just upheld in the Ninth Circuit is Martin versus City of Boise. And this is a problem because of our homeless problem here, not only in the county of Los Angeles, but here in the city of Paramount. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a municipality cannot criminalize using any of the streets, sidewalks, parks, or public places as a camping place at any time consistently with the Eighth Amendment when no sleeping space is practically available in the shelter. So what does that mean? We can't even cite people for being homeless anymore and sleeping in our parks because it's a violation of the Eighth Amendment. There are ways around it, but we can talk about that at a later time. But as you can see, I'm just trying to demonstrate that this is where we're going. And this is why going to court and having someone as the voice of Paramount is so very important these days. Because Paramount feeds into Compton Court. And Paramount's a great city. And the other cities, I'm not saying they're not great too, but they have much higher crime rate than the city of Paramount. So when you're concentrating on cases that arise out of Compton and arise out of Linwood and other cities, and you have good old Paramount there, Paramount's not going to get the same kind of attention as a case from Compton. But when I'm there, it does. So that's why I know I keep circling back about the laws, but it's even more important now that Paramount has a voice. So we have bail reform. Most suspects charged with nonviolent felonies will be eligible to be released on their own recognizance. This goes into effect in October 2019. So I guess we're okay until then, but this is what we have to look forward to. So what this means is people who are charged with violent felonies are ineligible for immediate release, but can be released after a hearing. They can be released on their own recognizance too. They're just entitled to a hearing. So what does that tell you? This is what our year ahead is going to look like. I'm going to be even more vigilant with the deputies and detectives in getting their cases filed so we get the best charges filed. So we get all the charges filed, not just one or two. Any available charge we can file, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to continue to appear in court for public safety sentencing terms. I'll continue with the abatements. Hopefully increase participation rates in diversion program, even though we are doing pretty well. Project LEAD, very much like GRIP, but Project LEAD is based upon the Constitutional Rights Foundation curriculum. It's a little bit different. We go on 2 field trips. We go to the Compton Courthouse and they get to do a mock trial. And then we get to go to the Museum of Tolerance, which is all paid for by the District Attorney's Office. This year we're going to be doing it at Tanner Elementary. In the past we've done it at Jefferson, but Tanner Elementary will be this year, I mean. I'll continue to monitor the gang activity, even though gang activity is pretty low here in the city in recent year, I guess the recent year. It's important that we still monitor the gangsters who are getting arrested, because we need to keep track of what they're doing in order to keep gang activity and gang crime low. We need to still get those search and seizure terms, those stay away orders, so they can't hang around with other gangsters. So they can't hang out at the gang house that's known on certain streets. I'll continue to fight the challenges brought by the recent laws that have been passed. And last but not least, the SAGE name. SAGE is an acronym for Strategies Against Gang Environments. That's not what we're limited to here in the city. So in the most recent meeting, we talked about changing the name, and I don't know if you know this, there's only 2 of us now here in the County of Los Angeles. So there's me here in the city of Paramount, and there's Georgina Ruiz, who's in the city of Bellflower. And it's convenient because we always joke about how we send our people back and forth to each other's cities. It's not really funny. I guess it's a joke amongst us. But no, it's actually pretty convenient because our crime spills over into her city and her crime spills over to mine, so we can work together to combat certain people and locations. But our name probably is going to change to Community Prosecutions, which is more, I guess, it encompasses really what we do. And that is it. I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me. I really enjoy this spot. A lot of people in the office really want this spot because they see what goes on in court, and really it's sad because they have no control really anymore. And here in this position, I have a lot of control about what I can do to help the city be safer and flourish even
Thank
more.
you, Kelly. We appreciate all that you do for our city as well. Are there any questions for Kelly?
I have a comment and
Go
a
ahead.
question. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh. I just wanted to thank you to Ms. Martinez and I both sit on the school city ad hoc committee, and I cannot tell you how many times they've reported to us at the texting program, about the guns being found and about violence, and that it saved after school fights and possibly someone's death, of course, with the
Right.
guns being reported. So I know they're extremely happy with the program, and they feel it's prevented a lot of campus crime. I had a question. I don't know if it's a short answer, or I might have to ask you afterwards, but what kind of action do you take during social media bullying?
You know what? If it's reported, I know that the sheriff's department has a specialized unit that works on reports of social media bullying. Am I correct?
Is it taken very seriously? Yes? We'll talk afterwards, and you can tell me how that's
Councilmember
handled. Thank you.
Hanson?
Yeah, I just have a question on the Garfield Park and the stay away orders.
Mhm.
After that is issued, does that apply then to all the parks in the city, or just to that one park?
No, just to that one park. Unfortunately, if someone's hanging out at Garfield Park and say they're drinking alcohol, they're cited, and they'll have to go to court. If I go into court and I ask for a stay away order, a judge will likely only issue it for that park.
For that one?
Right, because I would have to show some facts that he or she drinks at other parks, and if there's no other evidence that any other parks are involved and they're doing this activity anywhere else, the judge will strictly limit it to that park.
Okay, thank you.
But I should follow up and tell you that the stayaways are so important because if they're caught in the park when they're not supposed to be, then another case can be filed, a violation of a court order case, which has a little more bite than, say, possession of alcohol in a park. So the more times they're caught in the park, a case can be filed for each and every time, which builds up exposure
They
to
get-
jail time.
More and more trouble?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, item number 3, urgency ordinance number 1109. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. There are different sections of our code that deal with signs, either signs on buildings, signs on monuments, temporary banners, etc. When it comes to signs that are placed in the public right-of-way, there are a couple of areas in the code that address this. Our city attorney recently looked into this and also found a recent U.S. Supreme Court case that may be counter to what is in our code. So as a result, John Kavanaugh is proposing some cleanup language before you tonight that will address this discrepancy. So just to make it clear, though, this will not change the manner in which we handle signs in the public right away. For years, we remove these signs when we see them or when they're reported to us, either on poles or on trees or on medians, on the sidewalk and the parkway, so on and so forth. So once again, that will not change. This ordinance amendment will not change the way we handle those signs. So here's our city attorney, John Kavanaugh, to handle the item. John?
Thank you, John. Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, as John indicated, this proposed ordinance is more of cleanup language, and this, in some ways, it rises from the direction that, or the approval that the council gave back in June in the budget, which authorized the recodification of the city's municipal code. And what that means is that that gives us the opportunity to go through the code and see how areas of the code are they current under state law, or are they current under current city practices? So this ordinance is going to be probably the big one of many that we're going to bring back to you for consideration as we start doing cleanup language in the various sections of the code, so that we do meet with what state law is. Since a lot of these codes are pretty old, they haven't been changed, they haven't been addressed necessarily, but it's something that we need to utilize now with the recodification so that we're going along with cleanup language as we move along. This particular ordinance is, as John talked about, are the signs regulations. And there are various provisions in our municipal code that talk about sign regulations. And one of the things that we were looking at was, how do these sign regulations fall in line with current case law and what the law is with respect to signs? There was a Supreme Court case that came down about late 2016, Reed versus Town of Gilbert. And although their decision wasn't necessarily brand new, they did clarify a lot of issues with respect to signage and how cities and public agencies get to regulate signs. And in simplistic terms, the court has said that anytime that a city regulates signage, they have to regulate it in terms of being content neutral. In other words, you can't say we're going to allow certain signs based on their content and disallow other signs based on their content. It has to be content neutral. And one of the things that that the Supreme Court did affirm was cities always have the police power to prohibit signs in their public right-of-way, because that's property of the city, and they can say, look, either we're going to allow all signs or we're going to prohibit all signs. And that is a constitutional provision under the police power that the city has. That was in our current ordinance. Our ordinance, municipal code, did disallow signs in the public right-of-way. However, as John indicated, there were some other sections in the code which kind of allowed certain signs, the content of which could be placed, and others where content was forbidden or under certain circumstances. We believe that would probably run afoul of the Supreme Court's decision, so we wanted to kind of do some cleanup language and have that presented to you, so that, number one, we have a consistency of not allowing signs in the public right-of-way at all, and two, that they would not be content-based. In other words, we're not going to allow certain signs in the public right-of-way and allow other signs in it. It's going to be a total prohibition. The third reason why we're bringing this back in is that the current law under our code doesn't really give an adequate definition of a parkway. The city of Paramount, not all cities have this, but the city of Paramount has what are known as public parkways, where you have the area between the curb and the sidewalk. And usually what that is a landscaped area, or it could be an area where there's a tree, city tree in. And typically what it is that that area is maybe have to be maintained by the property owner, but in fact it's an easement that the city has, which is considered part of the public right-of-way. And so that was not really defined within the code. And what we did is that planning did a real good job and gave some good definitions from other cities of what a public parkway is. We put that in there, so now it's well-defined. The other thing is that we wanted to, as John said, we don't want to have the enforcement provisions any different than what we've been doing. we've been doing that so much. But what we wanted to do is that we wanted to also instill or implement a cost recovery system. So in other times, if there's a proliferation of signs in the public right of way or on the of poles or whatever those, and the city, either code enforcement or someone else or public works has to start yanking these things out, and there's a lot of them, those are costs that the city has that we can't recover. And so we put provisions in there for a cost recovery as well. So that, I think, will help the city in that. Finally, what we're bringing to you, normally we would just do this as an ordinance and have a first and second reading, but we're bringing this to you today as an urgency ordinance for a couple reasons. Number one is because of that Supreme Court decision, we have something on the books that I don't feel comfortable having just in case. And two, there have been some questions raised by certain other public agencies or some other elected officials from other state elections asking questions about our sign regulations. And so they're somewhat confusing, and we want to be able to have at least a very sound ordinance on board right away so that anybody who does come to the city and asks, they'll be able to be directed toward this new ordinance and know exactly what it is. So that's why we're bringing it as an urgency measure. And that pretty much concludes my presentation of what we're trying to do here. Like I said, you're going to get more of these over the next several months for cleanup language, but this is the first one. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for John?
I'll move the item.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemmons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Item 4, proposed changes to city's transit system. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. For a number of years, we've been operating a small bus system in town, and over the years, we've also added extra services to our transit program, like the Dial-A-Ride and the medical taxi transportation. However, we're now faced with an aging fleet of buses that are very, very costly to replace. We estimate this cost to be in the neighborhood of $1.4 to $1.8 million. There are also serious areas of improvement that could be made to the way we deliver our transit services to the community. However, replacing expensive buses and improving services within our existing transit program, that is the way we currently operate, is very costly and would take additional transit dollars that we just don't have. So as a result, we need to think innovatively here. So we feel that we've come up with a better solution to this problem, and we're looking to our transit partner at Long Beach Transit to expand some of the routes into Paramount, and to our taxi partners at Administrative Services Cooperative to expand their services as well to our community. I actually call them our partners because we've had a long-standing relationships with both of these entities, and they've served our community very well over the years. So as you will soon hear from David Johnson, if this direction is approved by the council, the transition to these transit service professionals will ultimately provide better access to regional destinations and a higher quality of service in town for our residents. And all this can be done at a reduced cost. We anticipate seeing savings in our transit dollars that can be put to other areas that promote public transit. So, and as an added bonus, these agencies also operate mostly low-emission vehicles, which helps support our environmental sustainability efforts. So tonight, just the direction we're asking is that the council allow us to move forward with drafting agreements with these two companies, and once drafted, we'll come back to the council for approval of these agreements. So with that, I'll turn it over to David Johnson, our Director of Community Services and Recreation, to handle the item. David?
Thank you, John, Mayor and council members. So as John obviously mentioned, I mean, transit services in our town is a very important service that we provide to our community, especially to those most vulnerable, to our seniors, those with disabilities. So we need to always look at this program, our programs, and find if they are actually financially viable going into the future. So we have looked at that, we have concerns, and I think we've come up with a very good proposal to make sure that we remain viable for many years ahead. So as some background here, what we started off back with in terms of we started with like 1980s. We're one of the cities that we started off with Dave Services, went to Laidlaw, now it's owned by First Transit. So we have a contract with a service provider to provide a fixed route program, a Dial-A-Ride program, and what we call our elderly nutrition program, Shuttle. So the fixed route is Again, all these fixed route, dial ride, elderly nutrition, we own these buses. We just contract with First Transit to operate them. So our fixed route is what we currently have in town. It has set stops throughout the community, and it actually runs in 2 different directions. Our dial ride is a on-demand service. It's a shuttle that picks up people to take them to various destinations within the city. And our elderly nutrition program picks people up from their homes on a shuttle and takes them directly to the community center and then back. So in 1994, we actually added a new program. It's our medical taxi program. So this takes seniors and those with disabilities outside of the city, within a 5-mile radius, to medical trips in other surrounding communities. And then the last thing we added in 2011, 2012 school year was our college-bound program. Again, this is a fixed route service for us. There's 4 stops in Paramount. We pick them up from those 4 stops, and we take them. 1 bus goes directly to Cerritos College, and 1 goes directly to Long Beach City College. So the funding for these transit services comes from it's Proposition A. It's a county half-cent sales tax. That money flows to the various cities in the county, and we get an allocation each year. Problem with that revenue is, as I note on here, from FY 2000, we looked at 10 years, but from FY 2009 to 2013, we ran deficits. And so we were expending more on our operation of our program than we were taking in revenue. And then it's since recovered, but so there's limitations to our Prop A revenue in terms of financing these programs. The revenue will fluctuate in good years and bad years, but our expenses stay the same. One huge problem that we've developed is because we were eating into our surplus, and because even on good years, we were having small surpluses, we do not have the resources to replace our fleet. So as John mentioned, that ranges, all our vehicles right now are either due for replacement or past due for replacement. We're looking at a huge capital cost to replace these vehicles. We do not have those funds, and we couldn't acquire those funds. It would take years and years and years. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about how ridership is going on our current system. So from 1997, we had data all the way back to 97. From 1997 to 2010, we were averaging 13,000 riders per month on our fixed route, 550 on dollar ride, and 320 on our ENP program. Now, it started to really start diminishing in 2011. You start seeing a slow slide in usage, particularly for a fixed route. The only thing that's actually increasing is our ENP shuttle, which is for our seniors. And then the current performance in the months that we have for 2018, it's actually fallen even further. However, ENP continues to go strong. Our college bound, which we started again in 2011-12, again started off okay. It really got strong in 13 and 14 and 15, and then now we're starting to see the same kind of slide. So in 2018, we had a huge drop off. So now I want to point out that this is total rides. These are not number of users. So we don't know. I mean, we can tell you that we're probably averaging 50 to 60 users per day on our college bound. But this number that you're looking at in 2018, in that school year, they had 10,360 trips. So they count how many people got on the bus and went back and forth. But we're averaging probably about 50 to 60 riders per day on each of those buses. At the peak years, when we're looking at like 2013, it was like upwards as 90 kids per day on each of those buses. So there's obviously we have a concern that it's not being used the way it used to, and what's wrong. So we contracted with the consultants for Pepe and Smith, and they created 2 focus groups. They looked at one group that were the fixed route users, the college bound users, and then a second group are dollar ride and ENP users. So our dollar ride and ENP users, this is what they told us. They were very honest. They do appreciate the service. However, they found that there were long wait times and untimely bus arrivals. So both of these are shuttles. So they're not point-to-point service. So that shuttle has to pick up multiple people along the way to get to their destination. And then the same thing to take people home. So, if you make an appointment at 2:30 and then somebody makes an appointment at 2:45 and 3 o'clock, the bus is doing its best to get there and arrive at the location on time. But because it's one shuttle, it has difficulties, and so you will have long wait times, and they don't always arrive on time. With regards to dispatch and booking difficulties, they indicated to us that they have sometimes trouble getting the bus drivers to show up to the location which they were trying to describe. Customer service issues are primarily issues with the quality of bus drivers, that they were rude at times. This service, obviously our E&P is not open on the weekends, but our Dial-A-Ride, they pointed out that is inconvenient because it does not operate on weekends at all. Excuse me. So they did ask about more, they did identify lack of point-to-point service as a problem. So again, they would like to be picked up and taken directly to their destination without other stops along the way. And they obviously identified the poor quality of our buses. They have deteriorated dramatically because again, they are all due for replacement. In our E&P program, our seniors identified that the shuttle that picks them up and takes them back to their homes is not really conducive to those that, and primarily almost all of them use walkers, and it's really inconvenient for them to get on and off that shuttle and to store their walkers. Our fixed route and college-bound focus group, they identified most of our bus stops do not have shade, and they would like to have some kind of shade structure to protect them from the sun and the rain. Limited operating time. So our fixed route does not operate on Sunday at all. It has limited service on Saturday. And our college-bound, because again, the cost of running those buses, when we originally ran this program, we found that there wasn't a lot of use on Fridays. So we don't offer Friday service, we don't offer weekend service, and we don't, it doesn't run all day. So they had trouble with that. Travel times were long. Again, they, same as the other group, they didn't like the quality of the buses. The fixed route folks did identify that they actually would like our service to go outside of the city. And then our college-bound users identify that Cal State Long Beach has become one of the primary destinations for high school students from our local high school. Our fixed route, so this is what we met with Long Beach Transit, we met with Administrative Services Co-op, and we think we have a pretty good solution here. So let's start with fixed route. We're looking at eliminating our city-owned fixed route system and expanding Long Beach Transit services into town to accommodate those routes that were taken away. What specifically they're adding is an extension of Long Beach Route 21, which would take us through our downtown shopping area, and then an extension of Route 71, which would then take us to the Walmart Shopping Center. So this is what our current fixed route system looks like. That's the route that it takes. Again, one bus goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise. And then this is what Long Beach Transit is proposing. So we're going to work left to right. That green line, Route 71, is the one that runs north to south, and it used to terminate, actually, it made a right turn on Rosecrans and terminated at Garfield. That line will now extend all the way to Lakewood, where the Walmart Shopping Center is. The blue line, which is Route 21, used to terminate at Rosecrans. It will now actually then turn on Rosecrans and actually encompass our entire downtown area. Actually, it'll do so also with two buses, one running opposite directions. And then the line 22, the one in orange, Long Beach Transit actually has already extended that line to the Lakewood station in Downey. So that line used to terminate at Alondra, and now it runs through the entire length of the city, all the way to the Lakewood station. So when you look at this, that the old fixed route system is highlighted in yellow. The areas identified in orange are actually areas that are not being picked up from our old system. And so what they propose is a system that actually covers about 83% of our current route. So in comparing the two kind of next to each other, our existing system versus the proposed system, we currently have a double loop through town. The Long Beach Transit system will provide some of that and then also connect us to other regions, other areas in our region. The days and hours is a big difference. So ours had very limited service. The fixed route offered by Long Beach Transit will have a lot more service than what we currently provide in terms of days and times. Our route takes about 50 to 60 minutes to get around town. Their buses have a 30-minute headway, so there will be a bus every half an hour and 40 minutes on Saturdays and Sundays, so it's quicker than our buses. The buses that we have are older, they're a bit smaller. The Long Beach Transit operates newer, bigger buses. Their buses also are of a much cleaner nature. They operate all with zero or near zero emission vehicles. The buses that we run some are CNG, older CNG and diesel. And then the cost is fairly negligent. It's a 25% increase. And then a big part for us here is that we would go from owning our own vehicles and having to maintain them and replace them, which we cannot afford, to allowing Long Beach Transit to operate the system, which they own the vehicles. One of the things that we gain from participating with Long Beach Transit is, actually this is a really good program. So we have our own dial-a-ride that will operate in town, but they have what they call dial-a-lift. If you have a mobility impairment issues such that you cannot get onto one of Long Beach Transit's fixed route systems, you can call dial-a-lift, and it's like their dial-a-ride, and it'll pick up these mobility impaired individuals, transport them into locations inside of Paramount, but more importantly, it takes them to those regions that you see there. That takes you to Long Beach, Signal Hill, and Lakewood. So it broadens much to that vulnerable community, really allows them to get much beyond Paramount, and again, it's a service that we don't offer at all. Again, we'll talk about our dial-a-ride program, but this is, again, Long Beach Transit dial-lift. Again, it's for those who have mobility impairment issues that cannot ride fixed route. So solutions that we're looking at for college bound. So again, we're looking at replacing that system entirely. We replace it with Long Beach Transit's Transit Access Pass, a TAP card. So we would get 150 of these cards as part of our contract. It would give them students access to Long Beach Transit, Metro, and other regional operators. So these students can get on these buses and they have the freedom to really travel this whole entire region. It's going to give them access to 6 campuses. Right now, we only go to Cerritos College, Long Beach City College. This is going to give them the chance to reach all these universities and colleges in our local area. So this is a map that kind of shows what that looks like. It's a lot of lines there, but everything in purple those are the 6 colleges and universities near us, and there is a line to get there for all of our students. Whoops, go back. So we looked at the time it would take to get to these various institutions. We start off with Spanny Park. If we were located near the Spanny Park area and we had to get on buses to get to these universities. So you see all the universities that they're going, or colleges that they're going to. In all cases, except for one, it costs $1.75, which means that there's a transfer in there. So they take one bus and then had to make one transfer, which would be 50 cents. That money, $1.75, would be withdrawn from the student's TAP card. In the case of Long Beach City College, we only had to take one bus. Long Beach City College is in the Pacific Coast campus. That one only required one bus, so it remained the $1.25. And again, these times are all very much commensurate with what it takes now to get on our bus and get to Cerritos and Long Beach City College. The only difference here, and so I'll be honest, is there's no way for us to know. So if there's a transfer, so you take one bus, you get off that bus, and you wait for the next bus to come by, your transfer bus. I don't know how to calculate that, because again, if you get there right on time, it'll be fast, but it could be up to a half-hour wait. So there is that little issue. So in comparing our college-bound existing program to what Long Beach Transit is offering, we only go to 2 colleges. The Long Beach Transit system gives a breadth of colleges that we can get to for our students. One of the big advantages, again, we only operate fall and spring. So if students want to go to a summer session, they want to go to intersession, they can hop on the buses, they can do that. We cannot currently do that for them. The hours that it operates are much more expanded than what we provide. And then right now, students pay $1 to get on the bus, go one way, pay $1 to come back, or they can buy a student pass for $25. With this, it's completely free to our students. So the first 150 students that come in and get this TAP card are going to get this pass for free. It'll be at a minimum loaded with $50 per month. And each month, if you don't use it, it rolls over to the next month. And then come spring session, when there's no school that week, they want to go play and they take it to the beach, they can do that. It gives them access to the entire region with this card. So moving over to, and I just forgot to mention, so we do have Ken McDonald and Deborah Johnson in the audience. They are from Long Beach Transit, and if there's anything I cannot answer, they're here to help me with that. So now we're moving over to our programs that are operated by our Administrative Services Co-op. We also have Marco Soto in the audience, and he can help me with any of these taxi questions. So they're our current taxi provider. They provide the medical transit program. They are also a very green fleet. 65% of their vehicles are Priuses, and they also provide a good deal of wheelchair accessible vans. So our medical taxi program currently, you have to be 60 years or older, you have to be, you can be disabled, and you can use our system. You register with the city, you get a card, and that you can load value on that card. You get on a taxi, you swipe it, and it takes that value off, and off you go. We're looking to expand that to our dial-a-ride program. So it'd be the same card system, expanded service. So instead of just operating 5 days a week like we currently do, it would actually operate 7 days a week for longer hours. And it'd be the same program, they register with us, we get them loaded up on the card and off they go. So in comparing the two, we operate the program now currently with one bus. When it goes to the taxi program, it can, with multiple vehicles throughout the city that will be able to respond to these services. Instead of taking a route where you have to pick up multiple passengers to get to your destination, this will be one-on-one. It's a taxi on-demand point-to-point service. You call for a taxi to take you to Rite Aid, it picks you up, takes you right to Rite Aid. You call it for transit back, it picks you up Rite Aid, takes you right back to your home. It's a lot more convenient. And then the cost would remain the same. And then our ENP program is very similar. So seniors that want to go from their home to the Paramount Park Community Center to attend the senior program, they'll be able to do this. Instead of taking a shuttle, where again, you have to pick up multiple passengers to get there, they're going to be able to then call, get a taxi, and take you directly to the center. Now, the bus, the way it works now is it picks you up. We generally get the seniors there at 10 o'clock, and then, you know, they're trapped there for the most part because the bus doesn't leave till 2 o'clock. So if the senior goes to the program, wants to leave a little bit early, get there early, the taxi is going to be able to do that. We don't have that flexibility now with our system. There is a ride-sharing option, so if there's a van and you actually like traveling with a few of your friends, they still have the option of doing that. So you've got 3 friends that you want to go to the program with, call them up, you say pick up these 4 people, and 4 friends get to go to the senior center. So in comparing them side to side, we operate again with one bus. The taxi program will have multiple taxis available for this service. Again, it's a lot more convenient. It takes you right to your destination and back. The hours are expanded. Same number of days. It's still Monday through Friday when the senior center is open. And again, it has the only destination is the Paramount Park Community Center. You can't go anyplace else. And the cost would remain free. So, talking money and savings. So on the left column, the First Transit, this is what we're currently providing to them and what we're paying in services and charging to our Prop A account. When you look at the middle column, that's what it would go to. Our consolidated service with Long Beach Transit and Admin Services Co-op running those various programs that we discussed. And it generates about $123,000 of projected savings for us. These savings are important because number one, now we do not have to provide for a capital replacement. We do not have to buy buses to replace what we currently have. So that money all becomes available for additional services. If we see that the program needs growth, if it can be expanded, we have the options to do that now. It also allows us to purchase additional equipment. If we want to buy new bus shelters, and I'll show you a slide why we want to buy bus shelters, we can do that. If we want to expand the cleaning service on those shelters, if we want to put more trash pickup, we have all kinds of options now. So bus shelters, again, this is what the kids, or the folks that drove the fixed route and the college bound identified. So on top, you see just a regular stop. There's no shelter, so you're exposed to sun and rain and whatnot. So, you know, again, as we have the opportunity at where we can at very high use points, we could put shelters very similar to what we've done in our downtown that do provide that sun and rain protection. Whoops, going back too fast. So if the council approves and we're able to move forward this is how it will be implemented. We have a 90-day termination clause with Long Beach Transit, or I'm sorry, with First Transit. We need to notify them that we're executing that and we intend to terminate. We would then engage in a very extensive city marketing campaign. So Long Beach Transit, we would partner with them to come into our community and explain how this will work. And then the city will conduct its own workshops to assist those people who use our Dollar Ride program. We'll work with Admin Services Co-op and show people how to use those programs. And then if everything goes well, we get our community on board. We will go operational in February of 2019. And our recommended action is that we approve this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions for David?
Yeah.
I have, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Peggy. Go ahead.
No, I feel bad. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have several questions, David, if you don't mind. If I can decipher my notes here. The Dial-A-Lift program, I didn't hear you state a cost on that one. The one that's with the Long Beach Transit where they can have the option of the Dial-A-Lift?
$1.20.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm Deborah Johnson, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Long Beach Transit. So for clarification, our Dial-A-Lift program is a paratransit service, as Mr. Johnson stated, geared toward people with mobility impairments. For people to utilize that service, they would have to be assessed to ensure that they had mobility impairments. In reference to that program, the service costs would be captured through the contractual agreement we would obtain with the City of Paramount if you so decided to ensure that the city manager could enter into an agreement with us. So it would come out of those funds that we had talked about relative to the Proposition A.
So right now, I mean, there's specific fees set for like the point-to-point rides and like the $1.25 and so forth. So when you say it would be absorbed in that, does that mean it would have that value on it? Like because we didn't have like a set-aside bulk amount for each item, right?
That is correct. So if I'm not mistaken, Deborah, the dial-a-ride service for permanent people that are immobile will be free to them. There's no
Okay.
cost to the individual because it's
absorbed in our
included.
contract.
Is that correct?
Yes, if it's absorbed relative to the Prop A monies that are allocated and they're
Which they
traveling
are.
within the service area, being the
Okay.
4 cities that were
Then
mentioned.
we have our own dial-a-ride program that we're transitioning to the taxi one. Now, that one's $1.
And that was going to be my second question. So the Dial-a-Lift program is in addition to the
Correct.
Dial-a-Ride,
Correct.
the taxi
Yeah,
program.
the taxi dial-a-ride would be
In
for
addition to the
those.
taxi
Right, and
program.
that's for seniors and for those that do not qualify for the Long Beach Transit.
Now, will the
Dial-a-Lift.
tax,
So can I point out for clarity, because I think I went past it a little too fast.
Okay.
So with the contract with Long Beach Transit, they will receive 40% of our allocation. So based on and again, that will go up and down. If we have a low income year, they still get 40%, their value goes down. If it goes up, they get a little bit more. So it's a contractual amount of 40%. So in that contractual amount, this is what we get. We get the expanded services in town, and then we get access to the dial-a-lift. And it would be free to, I assume they pay $1.25 or it's completely free?
There are certain elements of the program that we could discuss, but relative to the service area, for all intents and purposes, it appears free to the consumer of the Dial-a-Lift program.
Okay.
and then the taxi program, is that still going to operate the same? Then it's a taxi voucher program and they buy those vouchers in advance and we subsidize it? Is anything?
Well, we don't use vouchers anymore.
You don't?
Actually, it's a card. So we charge $2 currently for the medical taxi program. So you put $2 on there and you get up to a $20 ride.
Okay.
So they put value on their card. So when they swipe it, their $2 comes off, and then we get billed for the trip that they took. So these cards will work the same for Dollar Ride. It's going to be the exact same card. When they ask for a service inside town, they're going to get charged. I think we'll have to work that out, but it's about $12 maximum the taxi company will charge us, but it only costs our riders $1.
And speaking of cards, we're going to get 150 of the transit cards that are going to be loaded with, you said $50, is that
Minimum
correct?
of $50.
A month,
Yes,
and that's for the college-bound students.
that's correct.
Now, if we have more than, I think you said right now you have like 50 riders taking the college-bound bus?
Correct.
Okay. If we exceed the 150, do we have access to additional cards? And
Absolutely.
is there a cost for that?
Yes, I mean, we can certainly buy, all we'd be doing is beyond the 150, which is part of our contract with Long Beach Transit, we can buy 50 more and we ourselves would subsidize the $50 on each of those cards.
And for students that do the Dial-a-Ride now, did they have anything that they had to present to get on the Dial-a-Ride bus? Any, predetermination that they were college-bound students?
No. To get our pass,
Yes.
you had to show that you were currently registered in one of those two schools. So no, if you just got on the bus to go to Cerritos College, we didn't check. So you paid your $1 and off you went.
Because I'm assuming now that
They're
the
gonna have to
cards
show.
you're saying can be used for anything. They don't have to just use them for college. Like you said, if they're off, they
True,
could
but
go to the beach.
To be accessed the new TAP cards, you're going to have to show us that you're registered in one of these 6 schools.
That's what I want to know. So there is a prerequisite to make sure that they are students
TAP cards,
before we
yes.
give them the TAP card.
Mhm.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank
They
you,
also
Madam
have
Mayor.
to show that they're a resident of the city?
Yes.
Well, do they
Ours-
have to be a resident, being as it's
For
part
our
of the
program, because it's
PUSD?
part of our
Your
contract,
program,
they would be, resident or PUSD.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have the Long Beach students and Lakewood students.
Aren't you kind of throwing all your eggs in one basket? What if your ridership goes down and the cost goes down and stuff like that? And Long Beach decides to, hey, it's not a good deal for us. And 6 months from now, and we get rid of our buses, we don't have buses, and they say they're not gonna do it anymore. Is there any chance that they're gonna say they're not gonna do this anymore?
The contract, based on our discussions, will be for a minimum of 5 years.
5 years?
Mhm.
Okay,
I
very good.
think the riders' membership will increase, and I think our residents will be very, very happy. It's excellent services.
I think
for
so
the
too.
residents. Yes.
We
Any
won't
other
have to wait as
comments?
I just have one comment. Has anybody looked at the traffic impact? Because I know on Downey Avenue, when that bus stops, and then there's Tam's Restaurant as well, it blocks traffic. It backs traffic up from Somerset all the way to Flower when the buses stop, and then it becomes a one-lane street. So I think, and then there's about 4 traffic signals from Somerset to Flower, right after Tam's. So I think if that's going to be the case on such a narrow street, and these are huge buses, and I've seen the impact of traffic, that we need to do something about the traffic signals, because it's literally causing a huge backup on Downey Avenue.
Okay, well, we can certainly work with Long Beach Transit to look at location of bus stops to try to mitigate that, and then we certainly can work with Public Works on traffic signal timing.
I don't think it's just buses that do it either. I mean, I agree with Lori, it's a mess on Downey Avenue. But,
I've been
you
stuck
know,
there
so many
myself.
people just pull on Downey Avenue and just stop and park and get out of their cars and do that, and they have no concern for anybody else. So I agree with Lori, traffic is a problem there.
I'm always
Maybe.
backed up behind Tam's, yeah.
Always.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah.
But hey,
I know they have a really good hamburger.
yeah, they have a good breakfast.
Good breakfast.
May I
I'll
have a
move the
motion,
item.
please?
Go ahead,
Motion?
Peggy.
I just said I moved the item.
A second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemmons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hanson?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. Item number 5, this is a public hearing, fiscal year 2017-18, Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. The next item is a report that we do every year as a HUD requirement, and Karina will handle the item. Karina?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. The item before you is the fiscal year 2018 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, so-called CAPER.
The forward one? Oh.
Is this one, right?
We were going really well with our meetings. And then all of a sudden, we have one.
Just missing the clicker, I think.
Yeah.
Let's try that again. All right, so tonight is the fiscal year 18 CAPER report. It's a year-end report.
Nope, there we go.
Is it the slides?
Maybe that was the last, okay, that was the last slide. That's what happened. Okay, all right. As a recipient of CDBG and home funds, we are required by HUD to conduct at least 2 public hearings per year. One is for the one-year action plan, and the other one is the year-end CAPER report, which we are doing that tonight. The CAPER evaluates each year if the city has met our goals and objectives that listed in our action plan, as well as the consolidated plan. As part of the CAPER preparation, we seek public input for the use of funds. A public notice was published on Paramount on Press Telegram on August 26 to invite citizens to join our meeting and provide feedback. The CAPER documentation was made available to the general public at the library, as well as City Hall and on the city website. Over the last 2 decades, we are fortunate to receive CDBG and home funds, and they have become one of the most significant source of grants for us. In fiscal year 18, the city expanded a little over $1 million in CDBG and home funds combined. For CDBG funds, we continue to use the resources for basic services and programs, including fair housing services, graffiti removal, code enforcement, and commercial rehab programs. As for home, we use it to do residential improvement projects. Now, outside of CDBG and home funds, City also use our own general fund to accomplish some goals and objectives set in the action plan and consolidated plan. These goals include the ADA evaluation and transition plan, Also, to support the public services organization, we do that by providing fundings to various organizations. You see that in the budget. The organizations include the Children's Dental Clinics, Pathways, and Sukasa. So overall, when we combine HUD funds and city general fund, the city came close to meeting or exceeded the goals set in our one-year action plan and a 5-year consolidated plan. With that, is recommending the City Council conduct a public hearing and receive and file the fiscal year 18 CAPER report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor? In opposition?
Move to close public hearing?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hanson?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Make a motion to receive and file the fiscal year 2017-18 CAPER.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hanson?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. Item 6, an oral report, website development update. A staff report, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, this next one is a fun one. In April, we brought to you a preview of the work that we had done so far on the city's new website and asked for your input. And at that meeting, we mentioned to you that our website is 20 years old and in desperate need of replacement. So we're just about done with the new website and we're ready to go live with it, and that should be tomorrow. But before we do, we want to give you an interactive presentation to show you the new website. Keep in mind that as with any electronic tool, the website can be changed. It's a living, breathing form of media. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Chun, our Assistant City Manager, to handle the item. Kevin?
Thanks, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. As John mentioned, it is a very exciting time as we're on the eve of launching the city's brand new website. The development of the new website was long in coming, but we think its modern design and functionality will represent the city well in providing useful information to the public for many years to come. And just for some background, the city's existing website is more than 10 years old. It was created by High Point LLC and has remained basically in its original format since 2008. Back in 2016, a key recommendation of a communications assessment report commissioned by the city reinforced the fact that a new website is sorely needed. Based on that recommendation, the City Council approved $25,000 for a new website development project, and in November 2017, a company by the name of Vision was awarded a contract to build the city's new website. When staff started the website project, several features were identified as being essential. First and foremost, a new website had to be user-friendly. It had to make the most visited pages of the existing website prominent and easy to find in multiple locations. Of course, it had to be translatable to Spanish in order to be of value to our Spanish-speaking population. It had to make for information more readily available and involve less scrolling and searching. Another important feature was to optimize the website for mobile devices. In our world today, most people visit the internet through their smartphones and tablets. So considering this, the website had to be easy to use on all devices and not just on desktop computers. We also wanted to make sure that the new website had fillable forms for things like job applications, sortable calendars, and most importantly, from an internal perspective, we wanted a website that was easy to change and update by our staff without having to go through the website company. So as a reminder for you, this is what our existing website looks like. The website has served us well over the years in terms of providing information to the public. It's just become outdated, especially considering the advancement of website technology and formats for making websites both attractive and easy to use. And now, I'll give you a sneak preview of the test version of the new website that's functional, but it's not yet available to the public. So here it is. This is what the new homepage will look like. As you can see, it's got a more modern feel with a conventional navigation menu bar of items at the top. That's in red. And these are things that you find on other websites with other cities. And for those, for the menu bar, I'll go over those items in more detail in just a bit. As you can see, the homepage has a large picture banner for a nicer aesthetic touch. Directly below that are prominent buttons to features that most people come to our website for. For example, to pay your water bill, to request services, information on permits and volunteering, information on parks and recreation programs, and a way to access city council agendas and minutes. And just below the buttons is a section that can be used to call out important events or critical news. This would be a section that could change from day to day or week to week, depending on major happenings in the city. And if we go back to the top, you'll also notice on the right side are search and translation features, as well as buttons to the city's social media platforms. And moving now down to the bottom third of the homepage, there's a city calendar section for other upcoming events like city meetings or special events, and a news section for city-related stories and announcements. You'll also notice another nice feature as you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. The top navigation bar remains visible at the top and for use, and doesn't require users to have to scroll back up again. Again, this was an example of user friendliness that staff felt was extremely important for the new website. And speaking of the top navigation bar, I'll give you a glance at what each of the items will look like when you click on them and the drop-down menu appears. So first, starting with the services category, staff included several of the most requested services by the community or services the public typically has the most questions about. More information is provided on each one of these when you click on them. And of course, these aren't all of the services that the city provides, but just the ones we thought the public would find most helpful. And as times change, we can always change this information to fit the community's needs. Under the government section, you can see different sections of information. We'll have information on the city council, city commissions, and each of the city departments. In this drop-down menu, we'll also have information on other county, state, and federal government elected officials. We also thought it important to show that government transparency is important to the city, and in this section, we'll include items like the city budget, city CAFR, employee salaries, etc. And finally, we'll include a staff directory to help make contact to help make it easier to contact city employees. The staff directory, as you'll see, is included in different pages throughout the new website to make it easy to find our phone numbers and email addresses. Moving on to the community section, the drop-down menu will include additional city information as well as information on community groups like service clubs, PUSD, YMCA, and the Paramount Library. Under businesses, information is provided here to help existing businesses and potential new businesses looking to locate in Paramount. And lastly, under How Do I, this is intended to be a helpful section for members of the public who may not be familiar with how the city is organized, but can direct them to helpful information based on several broad categories. Most, if not all, of this information that you see here in the drop-down menu is exactly the same as information that you'd find elsewhere in the website. This duplication or redundancy of information was designed into the website intentionally in order to make it easier for users to find what they're looking for from different searching perspectives. And just to drill down a bit further into the website and to show you what more specific pages will look like under a particular navigation dropdown, again here under How Do I, let's look under the category Find, and then click on Your Trash Day. This will take users to this page that you see here, which shows a map of the different days trash is collected in different parts of town. There will be, again, there will be a page like this with helpful information for items in this section of the website as well as sections throughout the website. So now, as if you could, let's see. Are we going to go to the are we going to go back to the presentation? Okay. Well, now at this point, we've migrated all of the information from the current website into the existing website, and we've also added some additional information. But there's a lot more information that we'd like to include in the website, but at this point, we feel that we've got substantial enough information in our website that we feel that we're ready to launch it now. So our plan is to launch the website tomorrow, as John mentioned, and then immediately and pretty much continuously thereafter, we'll add, subtract, modify, and update the new website pretty much on a daily basis. So again, in many ways, the city's website is our first point of contact with the public, and we feel that this is it really puts our best foot forward. So with that, we hope you enjoy the new design of the website and its functionality, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments for Kevin? It definitely appears to be user-friendly.
And
We'll see
attractive.
tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, are there any comments from council members?
Diane, I just want to thank Al for bringing us these certificates of appreciation. That was nice of you to bring every one of us one of these certificates, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you also, and I might make a little report from the Vector Control Board meeting last week. They've been, the month of August, they were inundated with calls for service, because I guess there's mosquitoes all over the place. They're running at probably at least 7 days behind, probably more than that. There were, just for that month, it was double the normal calls that they get. It was up around 1,400 for that month alone, and we haven't reached the height of the mosquito season as of yet. But yet, West Nile virus cases are kind of down this year thus far,
good.
so that's a good part.
What can you tell us about those mosquitoes that attack your ankles?
Well, they're probably Egypti mosquitoes. I learned a bit on that. They kind of bite all day, actually. Those are the Asian tiger mosquitoes, and they hadn't been around in quite some time. 2-3 years ago, there was a little section of South El Monte where they started detecting these, and the vector control at Greater Los Angeles. There's several vector control boards, okay, and I think we're probably the largest. We go from parts of Long Beach to Brea to Glendale. Their second office is in Sylmar, out in the valley. It's kind of spread, and if you see any of those around, because they bite all day, they're not just like in the early morning or at night or late afternoons. And the best thing, actually, they were supposed to send, did we get anything here? They were going to send the city some stuff on the mosquito repellents.
The repellents, I believe I don't know if we got information on the repellents, but we are putting something out on the quarterly, or the monthly newsletter on mosquitoes. But let me double check to see if that includes the repellents. I just reviewed it.
They were going to do that. I mean, there were 4 different ingredients. Some of them I'd never heard of. DEET is probably the most
common.
popular one. But also, there's Amway has a lotion, a body lotion, I believe, that is supposed to work very well for mosquitoes also. But they were going to send that out. I thought they were going to send it out on Friday.
Okay.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
They literally chase you inside your house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
oh,
the
yeah,
whole
they're
reason?
really-
What is
and
the
chase you
reasoning of
down.
the
It's
increase in
amazing.
the
And just for
mosquitoes?
anybody who's having a problem, because my family was totally eaten up, and a friend told me to buy Johnson's and Johnson's with aloe and cucumber. And so far, that's the only thing that's worked. It's worked really well and smells so much better than the off sprays and all that. So I don't know if it's particular to individuals, but we were getting about, no exaggeration, 15 to 20 a night. And we haven't had any since I started using it. So I don't know if it's a coincidence, but
The reason for the increase on these is the eggs will lie dormant for years, years and years. And all it takes is a slight bit of water and they become active.
yeah.
I
As
teach
little
you how
as
to
a bottle cap full of water and you can start hatching mosquitoes. And so that's
Gross.
I
teach,
had
that is, yes, that's very nasty.
Excuse me, I had exterminators out and paid, I think, $139 to get rid of them. And after it was all done, he told me, he says, well, he says, it's really not going to do a lot of good if your neighbor's got it because they're going to fly over the fence. But he has a rule, he was telling me, that these mosquitoes lay in bushes, not so much on the grass and stuff like that. They lay in bushes in windy areas. And I mean, where the wind doesn't get to it. Doesn't really have anything to do with the water, he told me. It's just that.
got to have water to
Yeah.
hatch.
Yeah.
Huh?
They got to have water to hatch.
Yeah.
That's
So
why they-
anyway,
that's why
he
they-
just
they-
says that if they don't come out in the, like, you see water sitting in a pot or something, you got plants or something like that, and you're sitting in pots. He says these mosquitoes don't get in those kind of pots. So I don't know.
Well,
But all I know is we got mosquito bites.
They're very
They're all
aggressive. I know
over.
they're very
And-
aggressive. That's what I know. Very
yeah,
aggressive.
they do have a new, they call it the SWAT bus, actually, which is, they've been spend quite a bit of money on that. It goes to schools and so on and so forth, but it also comes to city functions. And if we ever want someone, if you have room on an agenda, they will send someone here to talk about them because, like I say, even into next month is a high season.
I know, I put in a request to have the sprayed because, people's fountains, they say, and there's a couple of fountains on my street that are dormant. They say those are really bad for it, and they told me normally we'd be there in 2 to 3 days, but it'll probably be more like 14.
Yeah, they're way behind because of so many calls, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else unless
No, I
somebody has
teach-
another question.
No, I teach first grade, and half my first graders have mosquito bites. So I'm going to buy a bottle of that aloe vera.
I'll send you a snapshot
Yes. Okay, last Thursday evening, I attended the Beacon Awards ceremony at the League of California Cities Conference along with our city manager. It was truly an honor for Paramount to be recognized in front of many other cities from around the states for our efforts to promote sustainability and environmental health. The city earned a silver level sustainability best practices Beacon Award. From stormwater management and green streets to clean air vehicles and energy efficiency at our facilities. The city was recognized for helping to reduce our carbon footprint, and it was truly an honor to receive this award on behalf of the city. Any other comments?
Good job. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just want to send a big thank you to our staff, both Parks and Recreation and Public Works, for getting everything prepared for the Channel 7 live broadcast at the pond. They worked really hard under a short time period that we were notified to get things ready and where to go. So they were here at 3 o'clock in the morning getting things all set up, and it went off pretty well. At the next council meeting, we will show the video.
Video?
Yeah, the video from all
How
that.
much total airtime did we kind of
15 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
all told. So, yeah, it was really good coverage.
Good.
At this time, I adjourn our meeting to October 2nd, 2018.